Oh my god. Welcome everyone to this. Oh, sorry. Let me just turn something down. Welcome everyone to this Ask Me Anything with Jackie. Um,
Hello, everybody.
just an introduction. I am Amanda Panda. I will be moderating the stream and asking Jackie and picking all the questions. Please don't yell at me if I don't pick your questions. There might be a reason. There might not be. So I will be also typing in chat. For those of you who do not know, Jackie is a former bass player for the Runaways. Yes, she is a rock star. She's a four-time Jeopardy champion. She went to Harvard Law School where she met Barack Obama, who was a classmate of hers, and she is the designer of the board game currently titled Rock Hard 1977. So, welcome, Jackie.
Hello, everybody. I'm really excited to be doing my first ever live streamed AMA, hopefully not the last if all goes well. And thank you for the awesome turnout. I see we've got people here from all over the US, from Mexico, from Israel, from Roma, la città del mio cuore, Hollywood, just down the street, and just a bunch of other places. So this is really exciting. Texas, New Jersey, San Francisco. This is really exciting. And you're here from several of my worlds. I see people that I know from Runaways streams, and I see people from the board game world. Maybe there's some people here from trivia, and we can talk about all of that and anything else you would like to. So before we get into your questions, I just want to let you know that you've got moderators on both Facebook and Twitter, and we're honored, not Twitter, sorry, YouTube. We are honored to have them with us. On Facebook, we have Michael, who might be on there under the name Christina. I'm not sure, but Michael and Christina are a pair, and Michael has been a playtester for me on the two narrative adventures that I've run on Board Game Geek's Game Night Live. If you don't know Board Game Geek, they're kind of the IMDb of board games. They are awesome, and they have a great Twitch channel where they stream samples of board game playthroughs, as does Amanda on her Twitch channel, which you can you see right on screen, and she'll pop it in the chat a little later. And then over on YouTube moderating, we have some board game royalty. Patrick Leader, who is the owner of Leader Games, which publishes some truly amazing, awesome board games, including Fort, Root, Oath, Vast, Pax Pamir. What am I missing? A bunch of games that I have on my shelf personally, and some others that I'm looking forward to playing. So you can check out his games at leadergames.com, and we'll post that link in the chat a little bit later as well. So without any further ado, let's dive into your questions. Yes. And we're going to start with one from Amanda and I are in a board game group together. We have some people from that group, Kevin and TJ, in the chat, and TJ wanted to know whether there were any game characters based on me. And the short answer is no. Maybe by the time this game comes out, the one currently known as Rock Hard 77 is going to have a name change, but no female bass players in there yet. But I don't know which one is the one. I don't know. I guess they're all a little of me, but I tried to make them really, really diverse so that you could see yourself in the game, because that's huge to me. There are a lot of games out there where all the characters are male Vikings, and there's one or two female characters, and they inexplicably are going into a dungeon to fight dragons wearing a bra and a tiny little skirt and high heels. Not what I would be wearing to fight dragons. So I wanted my game to be really diverse. So there's an Asian character in there. There are a couple of people of color in there. The one thing there's not, that there will be by the time this comes out, there's nobody left-handed in there yet. But I'm even thinking of that. I want there to be somebody in a wheelchair, because people who have disabilities, we got to find a better word for disability, because people who have maybe have some challenges, but they are definitely not disabled and can do everything I can, probably better. And definitely play music even better than I can, which is a pretty low bar these days. So, yeah. And I like this. What's my favorite cookie that Amanda makes?
Hold on. Where are you seeing this? You're just
I received this in the chat. Ruel Gaviola, who also has a fabulous board game Twitch stream, wants to know what my favorite cookies are that Amanda makes. Now, I've only had Amanda's chocolate chip cookies, but we're having Amanda make cookies for me. I have to think about that. I'm actually, my favorite cookies are tea cookies, and they're usually made with Earl Grey tea, but I happen to like them with Darjeeling. So there, and we'll do that next time we play Alubari, a nice cup of tea.
Yeah, I do have a shortbread, gluten-free and vegan recipe that I add Earl Grey to that I might try with the Darjeeling. But
yeah, try it with Darjeeling, and we'll do that for our next playthrough. I think that sounds awesome. Okay, so you see any questions? I see.
Yeah, you totally threw me for a loop because I thought I was the one picking the questions.
Well, you're going to be, because these are going to be set. You're going to be coming pretty quickly, so I am seeing some of them. Pollyanna, who I'm guessing is.
Oh my goodness, I gotta pop them up, Jackie. This is not
I know, but I'm going to repeat them. She wants to know how I got referred to Learned League. So Learned League is an online trivia league that has some of the best trivia players from all around the world, and I am part of that. I actually asked somebody to, I had been aware of it for a while because it's pretty much where the top players go to play. And after I'd been on a couple of game shows, I decided to challenge myself and play in some league play. So I actually contacted somebody that I knew did it and said, hey, can you invite me? Because it is invitation only. And I did 31 seasons over 26 different leagues. I've just retired from regular league play, and I retired in the major leagues, in the A league. So I'm really proud of that accomplishment. That is tough trivia on there.
Speaking of which, Marx asked, why are you leaving Learned League?
I am not leaving Learned League. I love Learned League. I'm going to stay on there as a contributor to mini leagues and to one-day specials, and I'll be playing some of them. I'm just not going to play regular league play anymore. I'm honestly getting to the point where it's just where I know something, but I can't pull it, and it is really frustrating, and it hurts my brain, and I've just decided I need a break from it. So we'll see if I come back. I'm getting up there in age. I know I look very young and I act even younger, but yeah, man, it's getting harder to remember stuff quickly.
Okay, so the next question is from Michael or Mikhail. When you were a rock star, did you ever play in Sweden?
The band did not play Sweden until after I left. And I have never been to Sweden. I really, really want to go there. I know that we were pretty big in Sweden, and we were covered a lot in the press there. In fact, Poster magazine has some awesome, awesome posters of us. And our fans there are some of the most loyal in the world. So I'm looking forward to a tour of that part of the world as soon as it's safe to travel again. Because I have 500,000 frequent flyer miles saved up. I am ready to go somewhere. And in fact, Amanda and I were going to go together to Indianapolis for Gen Con this year, and we just decided that we didn't really feel safe. So next year in Indianapolis, as our people say.
Yep. The next question is from Gator Dave. What drew you to the bass guitar, and do you play any other instruments?
What drew me to the bass is that it was the last instrument left in the Runaways, and it was the only person that they didn't have. So I made the switch from guitar to bass guitar. It's not that hard. The bass is just the first 4 strings of a guitar, E, A, D, B. You have to learn to not play lead and to play rhythm, which is kind of a big change. But once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy. And that was what did it. And I actually discovered that I was a better bass player than a guitarist because I am just natural with the rhythm. So that's what drew me to the change. And I know that Lisa over on Facebook asked if I still pick up the bass from time to time. I really have not in about a decade, because every time I play, I start wanting to do it. And I really don't want to have to deal with the music industry. I think the music industry has not cleaned itself up. There are a lot of really awful people still in there. And it's just, life's too short. One of the things that I really love about the board game world is that, unlike film and music, it has made a really conscious and active effort to increasing diversity in the field and to getting rid of people who are harassers or abusers. And there is a very low tolerance in the industry. And Patrick in particular, I got to give you a shout out for that, because you're great about that. The Board Game Geek people are fabulous. And a lot of other publishers are really putting their money where their sentiments are. And that's something that is really special to me about my new hobby, and hopefully my new avocation.
Roberto says, why weren't you pictured as yourself in the Runaways movie, and what did you think about it?
This is a very long story, but the short thing is that they were not honest about how they were dealing with the rights. And when they asked me for my rights to be depicted in the movie, I asked what I thought was a really fair question. And I just said, what's Joan Jett and her manager, Kenny, what are they getting? I don't expect to be getting the same as them, but I would like to have a barometer so that I know whether I'm being paid fairly. And I also brought Lita to the table because she had originally said no. And the two of us were ready to make a deal with them. And they just decided to stall and then kind of use our depictions anyway without paying us. So it was not a great experience. I did go see the movie. It hit kind of the high points of our career, but it didn't feel like us. Like I wasn't feeling that I was watching a movie about my life in any way, which is unfortunate. And I think that was Floria Sigismondi's first feature film. She has since gone on to do some really amazing stuff. She's done episodes of The Handmaid's Tale. I'm going to tell you, I think that is a great television show. I don't recommend binging it, which is what I did, because watching 4 episodes a day of that will put you in a really weird headspace, like a really weird one. Especially when suddenly the cops come to your door and say, we got a 911 call from here. And you're like, nope, not me. And you got a hot cop. I'm going to give him credit for that, because even with a mask on, this guy was good looking. But then he said, oh, do you live here alone? And I didn't want to lie to the police. So I said, yes. And he said, you okay if I come in and search the place? And I said, no. And I will just remind everybody, if the police ask to come in and search your place, you have the right to say no. Same with your car at a traffic stop. They have to either have probable cause that a crime is being committed, or they have to have a warrant. Otherwise, you get to say yes or no in your sole discretion. And given that only about 50% of the LAPD is vaccinated against COVID, no thank you, even if you are a really hot cop. Patrick.
I was about to go. What did you want to say? Because I'm going to have to find, what did you want to?
Patrick said that he's found the industry, and I'm assuming he means board gaming, frustrating. And he's thought about ways to keep making games and not engage with the industry. But we're doing our best. Yeah, I'm sure that is true in every industry. And I know board gaming has had a problem in the past. And as Patrick knows, board gaming is very much at present a hobby that is dominated by Caucasian men. I mean, it really exceptionally dominated by the white guys. And I love Caucasian men. I even, something a lot of people don't know about me, I was married at one point to one. And so yeah, there's nothing wrong with white guys. We love them, but seeing yourself in the game is really important, and knowing that you have a safe space to enjoy your hobby. And I think board gaming, more than a lot of other industries, is really trying to clean itself up, thanks to people like Patrick. Patrick is a game designer at heart, but he started his own game company, and now he has to deal with stuff like shipping from China, with all that's going on in the world, and all those headaches of trying to keep a game company financially afloat, and deal with the people that aren't as that don't care as much as he does about making things good and kind and fair. And so I'm sure that's frustrating, but old white guys rule. That is true, William Dobbs, in so much of life. And I see a question from Gilberto that we're going to answer.
Wait, I have to scroll down because I have things up, and then I'm going in order, and then she's popping something, so I scroll all the way down, and then I'll make it all the way back up. Okay, which one did you want?
I'm just going to tell you, put Gilberto's up there.
What's her name?
I don't know if he says or Gilberto or Gilberto Hernandez.
Oh, okay.
That's a good question on Facebook. That I know a lot of people want to know.
This one?
Yeah, that one.
Okay.
I have reunited with, as people may know, I did some little mini reunions with Cherie and Sandy before Sandy, our drummer, passed away. And those were a lot of fun. I think everybody is pretty involved with their solo careers. I got to give props to my former bandmates. They stuck with it through all the shit that was flung at us. And some of you know a little bit about the history. I won't talk about that. You can Google me if you don't know. And I've been through some pretty heavy stuff in this industry, that in music, that made me want to leave. But Lita and Joan and Cherie have stuck with playing, and I'm not going to say, never, but I think that they have had trouble working out their schedules and their differences of opinion on how it should be done. So I don't think there's a strong will to reunite right now. Don't hold your breath. That's the short answer.
Okay. So the next question I have is, Haley says, what's the weirdest, wildest venue you've ever played at?
I don't know if this is the weirdest or the wildest, but absolutely the most fun for me was a show that we did in I'm just now blinking, at the Royal Oak Theater in Royal Oak, Michigan, which is a suburb of Detroit. And there were 2 shows a night with 3 bands, the same 3 bands. We were headlining. Second build was Cheap Trick, and the opening act was Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, which right there is already just incredibly weird to me. But the awesome thing was that I got to, so obviously, because I was backstage, I got to stand on the stage while both Tom Petty and Cheap Trick were playing. And during Cheap Trick's first set, there was some guy heckling Rick Nielsen. You don't heckle Rick Nielsen of Cheap Trick. So there was a big orchestra pit in this place. It's actually the weirdest venue. So he went and stood on a sound monitor, and he was eating Good and Plenty's while he played. And I kid you not. So he's eating Good and Plenty's, and he was playing along, and right on the beat, spitting Good and Plenty's at this guy that was heckling him and hitting him every time. Never missed a note. Was just as like da 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 da. Kept putting him in his mouth somehow and spitting. And Rick also likes to flip picks to nicer members of the audience. So he's playing, he's putting these Good and Plenty's in his mouth, he's spitting them at the guy who's heckling him, and he's flipping picks to everybody else, all while playing Cheap Trick songs perfectly. It was the most spectacular performance I have ever seen. So that was a very memorable night.
Okay, so back to board games. William asked, what would you wear to fight dragons?
I would use somebody else to fight dragons for me, and I would stay kick back in a bathrobe, binging something awesome on Netflix. All right, that's a cheat. If I had to go fight dragons, I'm putting on some actual armor. And just as a point of accurate reference, when you put on a breastplate for plate mail, it is not molded to your boobs. It is just flat. You've got padding under it. Pretty much you are genderless when you go and fight dragons. So, and you want to be covered in all of the vulnerable places. I just got a review copy of a little card game in which you go to fight dragons, and there are 2 female characters out of 6, which not okay. But one of them has got armor on, but she's got cleavage. Somehow, just the cleavage is not considered a vulnerable part. And I'm just going to say cleavage is kind of where the heart is. So we'd be covered up.
Agreed.
Right? Yeah.
We have a special question from Watch It Played, Rodney Smith.
Oh my goodness.
Who basically was Rodney's live YouTube videos that we first met. So question is, at what point did you decide you wanted to design your own game? Did you feel the bug early on, or did something specific motivate you? Glad you found the hobby.
All right. Well, first of all, for people who don't know, especially people from the Runaways world, Watch It Played is probably the best channel for videos for how to play specific board games and learning how to play. And in fact, how I got into the modern board gaming hobby was that Amazon sent me a board game to do a review on. And I looked at it and I read the instructions and I went, I really don't get how to play this game. And I Googled it and I came up with a video from Rodney Smith of Watch It Played, and it was awesome. And then I discovered that Rodney does live streams, and I went and participated in them because Rodney is a very charismatic, wonderful, kind, compassionate, funny human being. I adore him. And through him, I met Amanda, and we decided together to see what really embarrassing and stupid stuff we could make Rodney do, because Rodney, bless his heart, does a whole bunch of them. He's got a great sense of humor about himself, which is not answering his question at all. What inspired me to design my own board game is that I frequently found that while I was playing games, I was frustrated because they weren't quite the game I wanted to play. I typically like so-called Euro board games, which is European style board games. They're very puzzly and thinky, kind of mathematical, but they can be pretty dry. And that contrasts with kind of American style board games where they're very heavy on theme. Those are the ones where you're dashing into a dungeon and fighting dragons, or you're doing some kind of adventure. And I went, well, why can't there be a Euro board game that feels like an American board game? And I went, I want one. I want something that my hardcore gaming buddies can play, but that I could bring somebody who really doesn't yet play modern board games, and they'd still be able to understand it because it would be kind of intuitive. And I went, I know what I can do. I can design a board game about being in a rock band back in the day, because people want to know what that was like. And here's a way for me to tell a story and put you in that place where you understand what it was like to be in a 1970s rock band because you're doing it in the game. So that was what inspired me. And I think you will see this game come out at some point, because I can't tell you exactly what's going on, but what's going on is very good. That's all I'm going to say.
Awesome.
Okay.
So I think you kind of hit on Hugh's question. Is the game set in the real world? What part of Asia is your Asian character from?
So my Asian character was born in Seoul, South Korea, but grew up in the States. She's got a backstory. All the characters have a backstory. And it takes place somewhere in, I would say in the U.S. You can be kind of wherever you want, but it's very much the American rock and roll scene in the era of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. There's nothing explicit in the game, but it will put you in that era, and it's and I think by the way, we have, I gotta do this to you, Amanda. I'm so sorry. We have trivia royalty in the house. We have Mark the Beast from The Chase, who, by the way, kicked my ass when I was on The Chase on GSN. Part of the reason that I decided to go out and start playing pub trivia and get better at it was because I wanted redemption. I was so not ready when I went on that show. And Mark, for all his fierceness, and he is the beast when you're playing trivia against him, but when he's not being the beast, he is an absolutely lovely human being. Is from England. He is super smart, and just a big hug to you, Mark. Watch him on The Chase. He's on ABC now doing the show, and he is just awesome. So I hopefully it answered your question how the game's coming along. Here's what I'm going to tell you. It's no, I can't tell you anything. I am sworn to secrecy, but it's in a good place.
Okay.
It's having a little extended summer vacation somewhere. So what else, Amanda?
I was scrolling back up to see where I was. Mike asked, "What's your next to-buy board game?"
Oh God, there are a bunch on my list. I'm really excited about Vital Lacerda's upcoming Weather Machine game. His games, a lot of people even who play board games, I think, don't know who he is. He's the designer that designs the games you want to play when you want to have no idea what the hell you're doing, because his stuff is complex, but he incorporates themes so well. So he's the designer of Lisboa, where you're rebuilding Lisbon after the 18th century earthquake. He's got a game called On Mars that puts you right into what it's like to be a colonist and develop the planet. He does games like that, and his new one looks pretty interesting. So that is definitely on my radar. The other one that is been super on my radar is one of Patrick's games, and that's Oath, which I just have to convince my game group to play because it is very political. There is negotiation going on. I'm not sure it's this group's theme. I know who I'm going to play it with once we start having meetups again, where it's more public meetups, because I got the perfect, all the people that I played Root with will love Oath. So that one's up there too.
I play Root. I haven't tried Oath yet, though.
Yes, you have not played Root with us, though.
Wow.
So I'm throwing down that challenge right now, Amanda Panda. You can pick your faction first.
Okay.
Which faction do you like playing, Amanda?
Well, I'm still a baby Root player, so I still only play like the birds or the cat. But yeah. I want to play it more. I do have it on Steam. I need to just play it against the AI and really.
We'll play it on Steam and re kind of acquaint ourselves together.
Okay. So the next question is from Rob. If you wanted to test someone's trivia skill, what question might you ask?
Oh, Rob is somebody that I know from Runaway stuff, but who has now started doing trivia and is a learned lead llama, as we call ourselves. So it would depend. Is it somebody new to trivia? I mean, somebody who's really new to trivia, the first question I'd ask them is, how many justices are there on the United States Supreme Court? Because I think that's something that everybody ought to know, and I think a lot of Americans don't. So I'm not going to put Amanda to the test right now, but that would be my first go-to question.
Good question. Another good question. Jason asks, what's your favorite ice cream flavor?
Mint chocolate chip. Always has been, always will be, and I've made it before, and it is awesome when it's homemade with fresh mint.
Ooh, wow.
And dark chocolate chunks instead of chocolate chips.
Emily asks, what's your favorite thing that you wore while performing in the runways?
Oh God, do I have to answer this one honestly?
I
Okay.
want to know if you still have the outfit.
I don't. Actually my favorite outfit was my gold lame Fiorucci jeans. I think they cost in 1976. I think they cost me like $300. It might even have been 500. I mean, a huge sum for me when I was 16. I saved up for that for a trip to New York. Fiorucci was the place I wanted to go because it was just the coolest place, at least, you know, if you were a 16-year-old. And I walked in and I saw these gold lame pants that were not that ugly kind of yellow gold that gold lame usually is, but actually looked like they were the color of burnished gold, and they were skin tight and they were awesome. And I wish we had a picture of them to pop up. They were fabulous. That was my absolute favorite thing. Awesome. Yeah, so that's my favorite outfit.
Haley asks, what's your favorite runaway memory?
I think my favorite, wow, I have so many of them. I think one of the things that really stands out is getting off of the plane in Tokyo when we played there in 1977, and suddenly having this huge crowd and all these paparazzi, and getting to experience for the first time really what it felt like to be a rock star, because we were not that big in the States and we didn't get treated like that. And that was the first kind of whoa moment. That and showing up for a record store appearance in Tokyo and having there be so many people behind the store when we drove up in this giant car that passed for a limo there, and having so many people press in on us that we were afraid we were not going to be able to breathe. And just having this, having somebody have to get us through the alley, get us out of the car, and there were too many people for us to even do the appearance. We had to escape. And I have a letter that I wrote home from Japan somewhere, which I really should post online because it describes the route we had to take to get out of there, where we were running into buildings. We were going through a kitchen from some restaurant, and we were going upstairs and then going through other buildings. And finally, we emerged from the basement into a huge Tokyo department store and ran out an entrance in the back somewhere, got into a cab, drove to the hotel, and there were more fans waiting at the hotel. It was crazy. So that was our Beatlemania moment, and is pretty memorable.
That's really cool. Here's someone that you might know. Kevin Carter asks, tell us more about your process from moving from the rock world to Harvard Law.
Well, I didn't go directly from the rock world to Harvard Law. I went from being a musician to doing stuff behind the scenes. So I did record promotion. I did music publishing, where I tried getting our songs covered by other bands. And that was a job that I got through Tom Petty, actually set me up with that. So I was representing his catalog as well as works by Leon Russell, Roberta Flack, Dwight Twilley. And so I met a lot of people doing that. What I really wanted to do was get into management. And in particular, I wanted to manage comedians as well as rock musicians. But I was in my 20s, I was female. It really wasn't possible to do that. And I thought, well, maybe I'd better go back to school and I'd better get a college degree. So I went to UCLA. I ended up getting my degree in linguistics and Italian with a specialization in computing. And I was going to go get a PhD in linguistics, but I started seeing all my friends who had them having trouble finding jobs and having to move all over the country. And I thought, you know, I really want to be able to choose where I live. I thought, I'll just go to law school and I'll have a law degree, and then I can do anything that I want. And I applied to a few schools, but boy, when you get the acceptance to Harvard, it's really hard to turn that one down. So I went off to Harvard Law. Didn't particularly like law school, but came out with law school size student loans, at which point you feel you have to be a lawyer. And I thought, I'll just do this for a little while. And I actually ended up really liking it, especially when I got to be in entertainment law and represent creative people and get them the kind of deal that I did not have for myself. So I'm very much about fighting for artists' rights as well as the rights of women. And I did that until I basically retired from doing it full time, and I started writing and going back to doing creative stuff. And I am so much happier.
Awesome. Awesome. So, Tara asks, did you design your own outfits, and which outfit was your favorite? They love the golden jacket.
Oh, thank you. I know that jacket. I know, yeah, somebody just posted a picture of me in it. I'm just horrified because I'm 16 or 17 and that jacket is almost completely unzipped. But I will just say the 70s. We did some
Awesome.
crazy stuff in the 70s. Also, I was young enough to look good in an unzipped jacket. So there's that.
Oh,
Yeah, I
Patrick.
was almost dressed to go fight dragons. We didn't design our own outfits. We bought them and put them on. We had almost no money with which to do it, so it was stuff that you could get at thrift shops, or occasionally one kind of piece like a gold jacket or gold jeans in my case. And then eventually we got to where we had outfits that were designed for us, only the woman who was designing them decided to put me in a jumpsuit, and the measurements were not good. So it didn't really fit properly. And there is nothing less comfortable than a jumpsuit that doesn't fit right. So I ended up just wearing my gold jeans and a leotard while everybody else wore their mostly two-piece suits, or in Joan Jett's case, I believe she also had a, no, she had a two-piece. Cherie had a jumpsuit, but hers fit her better. So yeah,
Um,
that was my least favorite outfit, was the ill-fitting jumpsuit.
Jackie, Patrick Leader decided to find a picture of you in that gold.
On the bongo board. By the way,
Yes.
that was such a 70s fad. And along with shag carpeting. And it turns out it's really easy to bongo board on shag carpeting because the roller doesn't really move too much.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Oh, there's another picture, just to let you know. There is another picture that I'm setting up right now, of you in that that famous pants and leotard.
Now this is a picture. This was our glam shot for our Live in Japan album. And yeah, that was like the first time that I really had great professional makeup put on me. So I made the makeup artist show me what she did. And I did that makeup then for years afterwards. So I wish I still had those pants, not to wear, just to have.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd fit in those anymore. But, yeah, those were awesome.
So your next question is Gilberto asked, what bass guitar did you use during your time in the Runaways?
I had a few different basses. I had a Fender Jazz bass, a Fender Precision bass, and then I had my absolute favorite bass, which was a Gibson Thunderbird. That's the one that you can not really see in that photo of me that's up there, but that was the big white one that ended up breaking in Japan, which precipitated my doing what had been in my heart for a while, which was to leave the band. And people often ask me, where is that bass now? When it fell over in Japan and the headstock split, I got told it would never stay in tune after that, even if it was repaired, which was bad advice as it turns out. But I sold it to Mark Mendoza, who was in this awesome 70s punk band called The Dictators. And as far as I know, he still has it. And it's unfortunate that I don't, because if I did, that bass would have been worth about $30,000 now. It was an extremely rare bass back in the 70s. And they are almost non-existent because they didn't make very many of this bass in the original white finish.
Oh,
Live
dang.
and learn. I also, for those of you who play Magic the Gathering, I also sold a beta Mox Emerald for about $300.
Oh,
And you guys know what that's worth now.
yeah.
Makes me want to cry.
Shell asks, favorite baseline song ever?
I think I love playing with fire because that was one that Sandy and I really gelled the rhythm section just completely. It was a perfect melding of drums and bass. So I'm really proud of the bass line to that one. I also love the bass line that I did to Hollywood, a song that I co-wrote, and both of those songs are on our Queens of Noise album.
Excellent. Do you want to talk about this one? I'll leave it up to you.
This was, Lita is being Lita with that comment. I actually did what happened. So I got some kind of flu while I was in Tokyo and I started running a fever. So I got taken to the doctor in Tokyo. Now that was an experience because they literally hold up a doll and you are supposed to point to on the doll what hurts. And I don't know how you point on a doll for a fever. So I was trying to communicate this, and I think they finally understood my pantomime, and they prescribed me something they prescribed antibiotics for me. They gave me a thing where I could look up the American equivalents of the medications they were prescribing. And I was trying to communicate that if I took antibiotics, okay, guys, I'm sorry about this, get ready, but antibiotics mess up your internal flora. And women very frequently, when they take antibiotics, they will get a yeast infection. So I was trying to communicate this. And I don't know what the doctor thought when I started pointing at the crotch of this doll, but was not getting the message. Like, prescribe something for what is inevitably going to happen. So I was telling Lita about this, and I just said, I'm going to have to go to my own gynecologist when I get home. Lita somehow remembered the gynecologist comment, knew that I left in Tokyo, and I'm just going to say I've experienced this a lot with my bandmates who have had issues with alcohol or substance abuse at some point in their life. The things that stand out for them, they tend to then to mush together and conflate. So I suspect that's what's happening with Lita, that she just, actually, I don't even think that was happening with Lita. Lita knew she was making a joke at my expense. So she did that. And that's what that's from. Okay. There you go. Too much information.
Lisa asks, do you still pick up a bass from time to time?
I do not. As mentioned, I would be tempted to go and continue playing, and that would just cause, especially right now, I think some of you may know, because I think I've posted about this, I have had for the last 2 years a torn biceps tendon. And I didn't want to go get it treated initially because I didn't want to go to physical therapy during a COVID outbreak before I was fully vaccinated. So I started doing PT once I got vaccinated, but the pain wasn't going away. So I'm going to be having surgery in a couple of weeks, and this will be interesting because I'm going to have my arm in a sling for 4 weeks. And I'm starting to think about all the things that I do two-handed that are only going to be one-handed, and just the thought of playing bass right now and having a heavy bass on that shoulder is making me want to run and go get a substance abuse problem. No, I don't mean to. I don't want to joke about substance abuse problems. I know an awful lot of people, some of my former bandmates included, that really struggled with it. It is a horrible, horrible affliction, and I hope we as a country start devoting the resources that we need to get people treated and stop treating them like criminals, because they aren't.
Agreed. I don't know if you can, but can you rattle off some of your favorite bass line songs?
Well, as mentioned, Hollywood, And I love playing with fire. And I always I think my favorite song of ours is American Nights, because it was always so high energy, so much fun to play with a crowd, and not written by our evil manager. So extra points for that. What else would people like to know?
So which bass guitar did you mainly use?
My Gibson Thunderbird, the one that I sold to Mark Mendoza of the Dictators. Yeah, that was my bass, and it's kind of the one I'm known for. So I guess a lot of female bass players use that bass. I don't know why. It just feels comfortable for us to hold. And maybe some of them were even inspired by me. Who knows?
Angela asked, did you discuss feminism in the Runaways? I guess it's while you were in the Runaways.
We were teenagers, and this was the era when feminism was really hitting its stride in the 70s. It's the same year that Helen Reddy did I Am Woman. And I think we felt that was part of something an older generation was doing, and we weren't part of that we were just going to go do what we did. And we were obviously feminists, though we didn't use that word because it was kind of a dirty word at the time, one that you associated with women out burning their bras. And we just we don't have time for that. We're just going to go do what the guys do. But I am absolutely a feminist, and somebody that campaigns very hard for women to be treated equally and fairly and safely. And I think everybody who's watching probably knows this. Being a feminist does not mean that you think women are better or should be treated exactly the same as men. It means we should be valued the same as men. So that's my feminism in a nutshell.
Albert asked, what bands inspired you to play music?
I grew up listening to bands like Creedence Clearwater Revival and The Who, The Stones, pretty much all the usual suspects. And then when the 70s came along, there was Kiss and Aerosmith. And I was a Kiss fan in the early days, in part because I looked at them and I went, oh, hey, they're really theatrical, and that's really interesting to me. But also, I can do that. It wasn't musicianship that seemed out of reach. And then I got very inspired by a rock band called Fanny that was all women, and they were more pop rock. I wanted to play harder rock, but they definitely were out there showing that women could do it well, and could even get airplay, although Fanny pretty much only got airplay on one station, and it was after midnight. So I used to fall asleep with KLOS, with my radio set to it, kind of on a low volume, and literally my sleeping brain would hear them play their song Better Boy and wake up and listen to it. I'm a light sleeper.
Awesome.
What can I say?
Lisa asked, what's your favorite pastime?
I have been a lifelong reader, particularly fiction. It is something that I do less of because I think we all read less. And I have really, one of the things that has come out of a self-isolating for COVID is that I started reading again. And I really missed it. And that is something where you're being told stories, but you're seeing them any way that you want. And I love storytelling, whatever medium it's in. It's one of the things I love about board games too, is that they are full of stories. And sometimes they're stories that the creator wants to tell you, and sometimes they're stories that you create with your friends as you're playing. So I think those are the two things that I really love most these days. And the other thing I started doing while I was in self-isolation was doing artwork. So I mostly post my artwork on my Instagram, which is all my social media accounts, with the exception of Instagram, are at Jackie Fox 1976. Instagram is Foxy Khmer, which is spelled Foxycmere. And that is a callback to a Runaway song, which I guess, well, is Hollywood, and a version of it called Hollywood Cruising, which has me at the beginning of the song yelling, "Hey, Foxy, come here." Instagram was always meant to be a lurker account. I was never going to use it. But when I started doing art and people started wanting to see it and buy it, I started putting it up there. And I just decided I'm putting my stuff up there, good or bad, because it's really good sometimes to put yourself out there. You think people are just going to hate on you. And it turns out that people, in general, want you to succeed. And it's something that we forget. And I think putting my artwork out there made it more comfortable for me to go start showing people my game designs. And that's had a positive response. So it's good sometimes just to put yourself out there with what you want to do, whether it's to go audition for a game show, to put something that you created up on social media, or just to go meet new people. I mean, that's really, I think, one of the greatest things that I've learned in the past few years is people, even the ones who disagree with you about things that are really important to you, they're still, when you talk to them, they're just people. And almost everybody is doing the best that they can every day and wants to be good and be kind. And sometimes they miss the mark. And, I just think go encourage people to be their best selves. That's really all you can do, and try to be your best and forgive yourself when you fail, because you're human and you will.
Agreed.
So
Michael asks, did the Runaways really share a bill with Barbi Benton?
Well, okay, first of all, I got to say, for you younger people, Barbi Benton was a very famous Playboy bunny. And I think she started getting into music in the 70s. And no, we never shared a bill with her in Japan. I think after I left the band, the later version of the band did some event that Barbi Benton was at. So you'll see the band with Vicky Blue in it on bass doing something with Barbi Benton, but I'm not sure exactly what it was, and I've never met her. I did, however, if you want to do kind of cheesy, well, we got to go to the 80s for this. I did shoot a scene in a movie with Pia Zadora while I was in Rome one year. And that was, I fortunately ended up on the cutting room floor. It was like the first scene that they shot for the movie. It was bizarre. I was playing an assistant to a movie agent. That was kind of weird. Casting, and they just had me. I had like 20 coats of nail polish on by the time the scene was done. Pia Zadora comes in as the lonely lady looking for an agent, and I have to just be like, do you have an appointment? Do you have an agent? Sorry, we don't, and I was just supposed to be indifferent to her. And I had 3 lines. That was an interesting experience. Yeah. They put me in a yellow blouse that I hated. I have a slide somewhere of me from that. I really should get that printed. But that was my big movie debut, and that was the last thing I ever did in a movie that was not a documentary.
Next question is, provided there's an environment to play music without inherent issues, what would you do? Who would you collaborate, famous or not?
Oh, there are some people I'd like to collaborate with making board games, because I have some designs that I'm working on, and a couple of them would really benefit from somebody who has a very mathematical design mind, because I don't. I'm really about making the big view on what the mechanisms are and how to incorporate it with a theme, and how to find interesting themes that have not been done but that people will want to play. But the grinding it out of the balance and the math, there are people who do that better than I do. And I think for some of them, rather than sitting through, I had the luxury of doing it with the rock and roll board game, because there was nobody to really play test with, because we were all self-isolating. So I don't really want to spend as long playing my own game over and over and over and over. If I were doing music again, who would I want to collaborate with? I would absolutely want to collaborate with Billie Eilish, because she does stuff that is really it's not my thing so much. She's very emo, but I just think she's amazing and original and fabulous and has something to say. And she's somebody I would love to work with if I were ever doing music.
Excellent. Compare and contrast your experience as a woman in music in the 70s versus what you think they're experiencing today.
Unfortunately, there are some things that still have not changed. I think, in fact, I just did a documentary that just came out last week in the UK called Look Away, which is about the music industry in the 70s and 80s. And they asked me to do it because I'm kind of the one person who has experienced a sexual assault in the music industry and really lived through coming forward with it and what it's like in the aftermath. And music has never really had its Me Too moment, which is overdue. And I know that there are still women who are being harassed and assaulted in the music industry, and there are still some really not good guys out there. I think it is changing, as every industry is changing, as more women get put into positions of authority. And I think as men kind of learn that there are things that are not meant to be harassing, that women have not in the past objected to, like comments about looks and I mean really pretty egregious ones where we just thought that we had to go roll with the punches and be one of the guys, and show that we could dish it out as well as take it. I think now women are having a little easier time saying, hey, I don't think that's appropriate, or that makes me uncomfortable. So I think it will change as a new generation of people come up. I mean, somebody else that I really admire in the music industry is Taylor Swift, because she's gone out there and she took on Apple, and she took on some of these organizations that were not paying artists fairly, and said, hey, it shouldn't Spotify, I guess, and said, either you pay me what I'm worth, you start paying artists what you're worth, or you can't have my music. And that could have really blown back on her. But she has put herself forward in so many different ways to make this industry fair toward women. So the fact that there are women coming up now who are comfortable enough to do that and to fight for their place, their rightful place, is awesome. The fact that when Kesha came out and talked about being sexually assaulted by her producer, she got sued for defamation in response, which is a disgusting response, regardless of what the underlying facts of the situation are. So, she's somebody that I just feel like is sort of music soul sister in what she's been through and how she's been coming forward. And I might start crying even thinking about what she's been through. So put up a happier subject.
Okay, so then I'm going to change gears real quick. What are moments with the Runaways that you were able to cherish?
I honestly cherish just the fun that we had sometimes bonding together. Like, there's this really stupid song that we used to sing, which we occasionally would do in radio interviews that went something along the lines of, as we go putting along, singing a song of, and then everybody would do an animal sound. So, and it would get to me, and I would always, and my sound was, so we would just do this silly little thing. We would start our shows with one of the guitarists, I think Lita would play, and then extended guitar go, wah, and then Sandy would click off 1, 2, 3, 4, and we would launch into our, a nice hard rock song.
Roberto says there was a board game about rock and roll called Rock Science. Do you know it?
No, I will tell you, Patrick has been a very much behind the scenes supporter of my attempts to break into the board game industry. And he did warn me that rock games were a hard sell, to which my response is, yeah, but there's never been one designed by me. And I think, I don't know that particular game. I know that the games that I've seen that have had a rock and roll theme, there are not many of them. They really haven't been very good. And I don't think there's such a thing as a theme that can't be a successful board game. I think you can do a successful board game about anything. You just have to do it well, and it will make people want to play. I mean, who would have thought that you could have a successful board game about cute little woodland creatures fighting each other and all doing a different thing? But that's Root, and Root is one of the greatest games ever made. The first time I played it, I went, oh, I got to have this game, and I ran out and bought it. And Amanda has it on her shelf. It's those cute little critters are pretty cutthroat, I will say.
Agreed.
But it's like you can do a game about anything, just do it well.
Yeah. Peter asked, do you still do Aikido?
I never did Aikido. I did for a while do Sun Tzu Kung Fu, which I stopped because it's a style that is very hard to find people that teach. And it got to where the one place that I could do it had a very difficult guy running the studio. And then a very nice guy that I was mostly taking classes from, who he used to be, in fact, he was a roadie for Van Halen at one point. And he would let me do his more advanced classes. And the sensei came in one day, saw me in a class that he thought I didn't belong in, and just chewed out me and chewed out the teacher in front of everybody instead of taking us aside privately. And I kind of went, you know what? I don't really need to do this. And went off and just joined a gym and started working out. And I kind of miss it because, martial arts was really fun because you could take all your aggression and channel it in one place. So yeah, if you were getting harassed at work and you weren't able to speak up, you could just go and go, yeah, whoa, yeah.
Okay,
I like that part.
On that note, Lisa asked, did you enjoy being on the dating game?
All right, so the dating game, I tell you how this came about. I had a roommate back when I was 18, 19. I guess I was around 19. And she was a booker for Chuck Barris Productions. And she came home from work one day and she said, you've got to help me out. I have not hit my quota this week for getting potential contestants. She said, go down. You don't have to be on the show. Just go down and audition so I can hit my numbers. So I went down. And of course, I wasn't taking this seriously because I had no interest in being on the show. And they put you up there to ask mock questions. And I was just insulting, friendly insulting, but insulting the people that were asking and giving joke answers. And as soon as I got done from it, the producer of the show came up and said, okay, we're putting you on. Good. We're like, when can you come in and meet with the writers? And I was sitting there like on the spot going, do I want to be on the dating game? And then I thought, why not? It'll be an experience. And so I did. I actually had a lot of fun with it. When they make you bring a few outfits to put on for them. And I didn't want to put my shoes on and off each time. So I walked out in this dress that was pretty much this color and without shoes. And they looked at me and they said, oh, no one's ever gone out without shoes before. You're really tall. Go out barefoot. So I was on the dating game barefoot. And I just had, they they liked me because I like talked back. So they thought that was going to be fun. And I just went and had fun with it.
Did you end up dating any of the guys you met?
I went out with the guy that I picked, not on the official date. I went out with him like pretty much right after the show, and then we didn't really hit it off. And I did get a date to Palm Springs. It was to what was euphemistically at the time, and fortunately no longer is referred to as a fat farm, and now they are called spas. And I ended up inviting a friend of mine who worked at the now defunct Licorice Pizza, and was a very tall, very thin guy. And we get there, and there's 900 calories a day. And we're these two incredibly thin people, and the chaperone, a woman who I had to share a room with, took pity on us, and she just went out of pocket and bought us food. I mean, it was kind of a crazy situation. And the one thing that I want on the show was a Norma Kamali bathing suit. That if you look at my dating game episode, they show it. And I was really excited about getting it, and I never got it.
Oh.
So GSN, you owe me. No, I don't want a designer bathing suit now.
What was your favorite Runaway song to play?
I think you've put this up about 3 times now, Amanda.
Sorry. If you could only have one CD on a desert island, what are CDs anymore? No, I'm just kidding. What would be the album that I would just say album.
Oh, probably Mozart's Requiem, even though that forever is for me is going to be, all right. So my 5th and final game of Jeopardy, what some of you know is that I started having a serious hypoglycemic episode during that 5th episode. And they sat me down and took like a half-hour break that you don't see during the show. And I probably should have stayed down. But the performer in me always wants to get up and finish. So I forced myself up. I was so brain dead. When it got to Final Jeopardy, there was my dream category, which is the works of Mozart. And I couldn't even figure out, I was in 2nd place. I couldn't win the game, but I could have wagered so as to keep 2nd place money. And I couldn't do that. I was so still hypoglycemic. I couldn't do the arithmetic. It was very simple arithmetic. So I just went, well, the hell with it. It's my dream category. I'll just wager everything. And we got to the clue, and I could only read 2 words of it. I mean, my brain was so not functioning. And I had read before that having a really bad hypoglycemic episode, it's like you're suddenly really drunk. And that is exactly what it's like. And so I saw 2 words. I saw Mozart and the word last. And I just plunked up, what is the Jupiter Symphony? And I'm literally thinking, because that was Mozart's last symphony. Its nickname is the Jupiter Symphony. And I'm looking at this going, wow, this is a really hard question for Jeopardy. But I'm like, wow, this is a really hard question for Jeopardy. I'm thinking something about this doesn't feel right. And we get to where they're revealing the answers. And I don't know, the person who was in 3rd place didn't have anything missed. And all of a sudden, I look at the thing, and I see the word, I see last work, that is asking for Mozart's last work. And what you also don't see on the show is me smacking my forehead and saying, duh, it's the Requiem. And Alex is just glaring at me because it's his job to say what the answer is. So of course, they cut that out, that I actually did know this. And so I put Jupiter Symphony, which instead of Mozart's Requiem. So Mozart's Requiem is the thing that ruined my perfect Final Jeopardy streak. And it will always have that association for me, but it is still, it might be my desert island work. So there.
Do you have any study tips for anyone currently in high school or taking classes?
I think, God, first of all, it's awesome that you are here and that you're in high school. So thank you. I'm guessing maybe you can pop up in the chat that you're here because you found out about us either from one of our songs being used in Riverdale or Fear Street or The Boys or something like that. I think we're still getting a lot of teenage fans, which is amazing to me and wonderful. So, okay, to answer your question, study tips. One of the things that I did all through school was tried to sit in the front because you can't space out as easily. It makes you engaged with the teacher. Don't be afraid to ask questions, even if they seem like dumb questions. You will always remember interacting. And the other thing is, because learning is has a multi-dimensional, I don't know that sensual is the right word, but you want to have a tactile experience and a spatial experience. So when you're taking notes, don't take them on a laptop or a computer. Actually take notes by hand. There are studies on this. One of my trivia friends, Pam Mueller, has done some of these studies. You learn better when you write things out by hand. Because if you take a note, especially if you take a notebook that has 2 pages, when you make notes, your brain is kind of recording where spatially on the page you wrote things. There will be muscle memory for writing things. And when you go to review your notes, you'll have that spatial thing rather than notes that are scrolling on a screen. So I think that really helps. And then if you decide to use mnemonics for something, which are things like, I'm not very good at this, but the mnemonic for the Mohs scale of mineral hardness is Texas girls can flirt and other. Now, see, I forget it. I don't learn well with mnemonics, but I know Mark is sitting there like he knows all the mnemonics. But those are my keys for being a good student: is try to find something interesting and engage with it, interact with it. It will help you learn things a whole lot better. And if you do mnemonics, this is my niece's advice: make them really dirty, because you will remember them. Like the mnemonic for the taxonomic world, some people do stuff about King Philip. King Philip is not very interesting. Kinky people are interesting. Kinky people can often find great sex. Now that is a memorable mnemonic. So make them dirty.
Tom says, what are your memories of Sandy West?
So for people who don't know, Sandy West was our drummer who passed away from lung cancer. And I think my best memories of her is that when I made the switch from guitar to bass, as I said at the beginning of this, it is the strings are pretty much the same. So the notes you're playing are the same as guitar, but you've got to learn to do it as part of the rhythm section. And Sandy would show up to rehearsal early so that just the two of us could have rehearsal, so that I could get the hang of turning the notes that I knew into the rhythm that would anchor the band. And she was incredibly gracious with her time and her knowledge. And those are my absolute favorite memories of Sandy, just the two of us alone becoming a really tight rhythm section.
Awesome. Do you have any favorite foods? Asked Eric.
You're going to think I'm weird if you don't already. Rice. I love rice. I pretty much love not wild rice, because wild rice isn't rice. It is actually a cereal grass, but it's not. But it's gluten-free. Wild rice. I am allowed to eat it. I have to be on a gluten-free diet, so I love starch. If I didn't have to be gluten-free, my favorite food would be bread, no question. But since it's not, since I really can't eat it very often, it is rice, preferably basmati, lots of olive oil, and a little sea salt.
Oh, interesting. I know you talked about the worst, your worst memory.
Wait, also chocolate.
Yes, dark chocolate.
Very dark chocolate, which sadly I can't eat now either, because I started having a reaction to it. But,
oh no.
Yeah, and that one kills me because I adore dark chocolate.
Yeah.
Well, Mwah, mwah.
Okay, so you talked about your strongest worst memory of Jeopardy. How was your overall experience?
Of all, I've been on three game shows, four if you count the dating game, which I really don't. And by far the best experience was Jeopardy. They just make you feel good from the moment you show up until the moment that you leave. It is the one game show that lets you watch other contestants play who are on before you and who are on after you, where you get to sit in the audience. They keep you engaged the whole time, so you don't have any time to sit around and create a lot of nervous energy that you feed on. When they put you in a green room and on a game show, you just start getting nervous and you're around other people who are getting nervous. And it just becomes this thing. On Jeopardy, they just keep you active. They keep you, like I said, they keep you interactive. They keep you engaged. They keep you very busy. You don't have time to get really nervous. You don't have time to think about it. They give you lots of practice with the signaling device before you go out there, and they just are very high energy. They're very much about the contestants, and everybody I know, even the people who lost to James Holzhauer, who a lot of them, sorry Mark, I know I'm telling tales out of school here. A lot of people do not like Jamie, and have had bad experiences on other shows with him. Even the ones who lost to him, who would like to take him on again, really loved their Jeopardy experience. It's just fantastic. And I've made some really good friends as part of the Jeopardy community, and we are a community. We have a secret Facebook page that is not secret anymore because I just told you, but you have to have been a Jeopardy contestant to be on it. And then there are subgroups of those. So I'm part of a subgroup that is just female Jeopardy contestants, and we talk about all kinds of interesting things. So it's like that experience continues to this day, and I think more than anything, that is the best part. Although I will tell you that I got to point the right way on that way.
Yeah,
that way. I got to do backwards on here. That money was very nice. That's a good part of the experience too. I actually had not been paying any attention to how much money I was winning, except on the very first day I had a runaway game, but I couldn't wager very much in final, and so the amount that I won was way less than average, and I was kind of bummed about that. But at the same time, I was really excited because it's like, oh my God, I'm a Jeopardy champion, and I had a good long weekend to contemplate that, and I was that was an out of body experience. And then at the beginning of my fourth game, when they gave my 3-day total, I suddenly looked at how much money I had earned. I was like, where did that come from? Because I felt like I wasn't earning very much every day, but it added up. And all of a sudden it was like our current champion, whose 3-day total is 55,000 or something. And I just went, wow, that's amazing.
Good money for 3 days of work.
Yeah.
Do you have your best memory of Alex Trebek?
Something that you never would have seen on the show. So when I had that very scary hypoglycemic episode, and I got back up and I finished the game out, which I then lost, Alex came over to me and he just put his hands on mine and he said, "How are you feeling?" First thing out of his mouth to me, "How are you feeling?" And it was really sweet. And while I was having this episode, and this was his half-hour break, he went out and just talked to the audience. He took questions. He kept everything light. It was obvious that he was concerned for me, and that concern was real, and it was really touching.
Awesome.
And then I will say that again, I think what people don't know, I approached one of the contestant coordinators and said, "Hey, this was at the end of what a lot of people thought, what could have been his last season, when he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer," and said, "Wouldn't it be great to fill the last filming day where the whole audience was former Jeopardy contestants?" And they came back and they said, "We think that would be a little overwhelming, but we're going to bring back some of the people from the TOC, the Tournament of Champions, and a few other contestants that we really like. So I think there were 9 of us that went down there, and it was his last day. He came out, and this is on the air. It was on his last episode. Gave this very heartfelt thank you to everybody, and then it was the end of the day. The audience filed out. The 9 of us were just there figuring out where we were going to go for a drink afterwards to hang out. And while we were discussing this, and they were kind of breaking down, this set doing their end of season stuff, I glanced up, and there was somebody on stage wearing just jeans and, like a loose jacket and a baseball cap. And I suddenly realized, and sunglasses, and I realized it's Alex Trebek. And as I watched, he just took his hat off and gave a little hat tip without, looking to see if anybody was watching, kind of just saying what might have been his last goodbye to the Jeopardy set. And that was hugely emotional. And fortunately, he got to come back and do the next season and go out doing what he loved. We should all be that lucky.
Yeah. Adam, let's switch gears. Let's talk literature. What are you reading now? I think you talked about this, but what's your favorite Murakami novel?
Well, I belong to 2 book groups, and I'm kind of reading ahead. One of them decided that they wanted to reread The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. So I just started in on that. My favorite, Haruki Murakami is probably my favorite author. And I think, if I have to pick one, I'm probably going to say Kafka on the Shore, which has nothing to do with Franz Kafka, by the way. I think it is my absolute favorite book of his. Murakami is tough reading. A lot of it's very symbolic. It's in translation from the Japanese, but he writes in a very Western style because he speaks English, loves Western music, has spent a lot of time in the States, and gets criticized, in fact, in Japan for being too Western in his writing. But yeah, Kafka on the Shore is one of my favorites. Wind-Up Bird Chronicle, and there are a few others, but yeah. Pop up for me in the chat what you're reading and what you recommend. I will also recommend a book that I absolutely loved. It is called All Involved by someone named Ryan Gaddis, Gattis. It is about Latino gangs in the 6 days following the Rodney King beating trial, when LA went a little crazy, and it is a point of view about those events that I have never seen before. Ryan spent a lot of time with graffiti taggers that were part of an art collective. There were a lot of former gang members. He had some access to people that were involved in Latino gang hierarchy, and he really wrote some serious truth in there, and it's very violent. I should give you a warning about that, but it will make you look at people who you would tend to write off or dislike, and look at things from their point of view and think about whether or not you agree with them, and which is just a good thing to be able to do in life.
Yep, agreed. Polly asked, do you know the band Skating Polly?
I do not. Is it your band? Is that where it comes from, or is that just a coincidence, or not?
Also, Haley asked, did you really go to Susie Quattro's wedding reception in Japan?
Yeah, but I don't really remember it. It was sort of she had an impromptu wedding to her bass player. And I think it was just kind of like we were there at the same time, and we were obviously Suzi Quatro fans. Maybe not obviously, but we were. In particular, Joan was. And I know that we got to hang out, and there are photos, and I honestly don't remember it very well, because it wasn't like it was a big wedding reception. It was just kind of like, hey, we're going to get married. You want to come?
Who did you get along with best, or feel closest to in the Runaways?
That is a really good question. And the answer is it changed on a regular basis because we would have little factions. And I'd say probably the two people that I was closest to, but at separate times, not at the same time because they didn't get along, were Lita and Cherie. So I was either very close to Lita and not getting along with Cherie, or I was really close to Cherie and not getting along with Lita. It was an interesting dynamic, and periodically I would just go hang out with Joan because she wasn't part of that dynamic either. And she was also the one who was who I could actually talk about things that were a little more intellectual with. So that was nice sometimes.
Do you still play bass, or I'm gonna add guitar?
I do not currently play a musical instrument. All my creative desires and output, I still write it in my head because I still think of bass parts for things and things that I would play, and just how my whole sense of rhythm has changed. I tend to, here's something that I do. I definitely convert time signatures in my head. So I will sometimes think, man, Cherry Bomb would really sound awesome in 6/4 time. Those of you who are musically inclined, try it out. Don't think that will ever happen, but it would be really interesting to me. But other than that, when I want to be creative, I either design a game or I do artwork, or sometimes every once in a while I write.
Noah asked, when did you realize you weren't getting as much money as you should have been in the Runaways?
Well, I realized it really early on. Unfortunately, I got overruled when I wanted us to hire an entertainment attorney. Our drummer's mother persuaded us to hire a friend of the family who was a lawyer. He was a guy who had never done an entertainment deal. I thought he was an A1 blank. He just reeked of bad guy. And the parents relied on another parent because she said, oh, he's a friend of the family. He's going to look out for the girls. And he let us give away 100% of our publishing and 95% of our merchandising. So I knew even back then we were getting an absolute horrible deal. And and then when I became a lawyer and I found out that it was a standard thing for people who were doing a deal through a producer. Like, we were not actually signed directly to the label. We were signed to our producer. And then the whole package was signed to the label, which meant money flowed from the record company to the producer. And then it was supposed to flow to us, only it didn't because our producer was a thief.
Oh.
And so when I became a lawyer and I learned about things called letters of direction and that they were pretty standard, I called up the producer and I said, hey, I need a letter of direction. And in doing so, I still had a crappy royalty. I mean, almost nothing. And it apparently pissed off the rest of the band. It never occurred to me that they had not already done it because Joan was a pretty big recording star at the time, as was Lita. Cherie had a publishing deal with a major publisher. I think Sandy was nowhere to be found at the time. She had some really serious drug addiction problems and would disappear for a while. So there was nobody for me to call, I thought. And I just assumed, hey, I'm the idiot that never got one of these. I'm going to go get one. And apparently the rest of the band did not have one, found out that I had done this and dubbed me enemy number one. And what I can say is, at least I have given the rest of the band something to bond with each other over, which is how much they dislike me. It's bands. I've learned that bands, as they, particularly as time goes on, there's got to be somebody in the band that they don't like. And in the Runaways, I'm it. So I'm the designated evil person.
Got you. Mm-hmm. Onto a different subject. What are your favorite hobbies when you were a teenager? I mean, but you were in the Runaways when you were a teenager,
I
right?
was still reading a lot when I was in the Runaways. In fact, when we did our first tour that was outside of California, I brought some books along and I read through them before we ever got to our first stop in Cleveland. So when we did the first thing we did when we got to Cleveland was a photo shoot for Cream, it was for some magazine that we ended up on the cover of. And they all pretended to be napping because they were so damn tired. We had quite an adventure getting to Cleveland. Oh boy, that is a story in and of itself. But they decided I should be awake and reading while the rest of them were sleeping. So, it was for Crawdaddy magazine. So if you look at our Crawdaddy spread, there is a photo of everybody sleeping and I am reading because I absolutely love to read even when I was a teenager.
Nice.
I know you're looking for something more exciting, but and there is I can't. I can't that. I can't.
Can you?
I
You
can't.
might.
Yeah, maybe I can. Let me see that. Okay, how to do this. All right, here's my true confession time. This is my reward for those of you who have stuck with me for an hour and a half now. So there was a band called Angel that was around at the same time we were. They're 5 guys with long hair that wore white flowing outfits, and Lita and I both thought that the guitarist Punky Meadows was really cute. So we were kind of having a friendly competition to get with Punky. Only Punky it turned out, was married, completely rare for the 1970s, completely loyal to his wife. So it was a failed competition across the board, which didn't stop us from trying. So one of our hobbies was flirting shamelessly with Punky Meadows.
I mean,
Who now, by the way, owns a tanning salon and is, judging by his photos that he puts on Facebook, is very tan.
Ron wants to know, what are your favorite sports to watch or play?
I am a pro football fan, believe it or not. This is part of me. I kind of think, okay, if men are going to make that much more money than women, they can at least go out and risk serious injury doing it and beat up on each other. Yes. No, that's not why I like pro football. I actually like pro football because when I was a kid, this is inexplicable. My father hated sports when he was older, but when I was a kid, he liked football. And if I wanted to hang out with Dad on the weekend, I was going to sit down and watch football. So I would sit there and say, Daddy, what's offsides? Daddy, what's this? And I was lucky enough to then be watching football a lot during the year that Franco Harris joined the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we did not have a team in LA when the Rams left the first time. So I became a Steelers fan. And I was a Steelers fan during the really good years when it was really exciting to be a Steelers fan. And then through the Cordell Stewart years when it wasn't quite as exciting. And then through the Ben Roethlisberger years when it was really exciting. And then also when they had some issues with some of their players, including Ben Roethlisberger. So that was disappointing. But my heart is still with the Steelers, even though now we have 2 teams in LA. I'm kind of like, the Rams. It's like, what? You think you can just leave me for all that time and come back and we pick up where we left off as if you'd never left me? No, I don't think so. I've taken up with someone else now. So,
Roberto asks, have you thought about writing an autobiography?
Okay, so the answer is yes, I've thought about it. It's really interesting to me that the 2 people in the band who don't read are the 2 people who've written books. Go figure. Part of the reason I haven't written a book is I still feel like whatever it is I am going to do in life soon is going to be bigger than anything that I've done before and more worth talking about. So in part, I'm waiting. I don't just want to write a history of the band because you can't really write your own history. I mean, I'm glad that Evelyn did it. Unfortunately, she did it before I had come forward and talked about my sexual assault, so it's incomplete. No one has written a definitive book on the Runaways. I have a lot of my memories written down because it turns out that nobody else in the band can remember stuff. When they were shooting the Runaways movie, I got a call from one of the people that was involved just saying, you have to do this movie. Nobody remembers anything, and listed everything. And everybody has said that they have blocks and don't remember. But it's not the most interesting thing to me. Like I would want to write about the fact that I grew up less than 10 miles from where there had been a nuclear meltdown in the year before I was born. Where there is something called the Santa Susana nuclear complex, where they were testing rocket fuels, and they had a working nuclear reactor that didn't have a containment dome. And they actually had a core meltdown that spewed plutonium and strontium and other radioactive stuff into the air for 17 days. So my whole family has weird health stuff going on. And there is no way you can convince me that it wasn't from leftover radioactive stuff that was in the air near where I grew up. Like, for
Wow, that's
instance, what you don't know about me is that I actually have 4 legs and a tail.
she just hides it well. She just hides it well. Tara wants to know: did you play D&D, which is Dungeons and Dragons, which is a role-playing game, with the band?
So yeah, Dungeons and Dragons is a tabletop role-playing game in which you can take on the role of various adventurers, and you get together and you go into often a dungeon, but increasingly it's expanded from that, some fantasy world, and you do battle with monsters, and you have a quest, and you find items and treasure and level up your characters. And it's a great deal, and you roll dice to see how you did, and it's a lot of fun. And I did not do it when I was in the band, but I did it, in fact, when I was in law school, because that is when I actually met my now ex-husband. When I got to law school, I was in Cambridge, Massachusetts, which was where they made my absolute favorite computer games, which were the games from Infocom, and they were the interactive text adventures, which I played a ton of during college. It is kind of amazing that I managed to graduate college, because I spent so much time playing Infocom games with my friend Mark, who is now part of our online board gaming group, and along with a lot of other computer games. And when I got to law school, I didn't want to be a first-year law nerd. And first-year law students are seriously obnoxious. So I thought, well, I'll go get it. I'm going to go be a game tester at Infocom, which I actually did, until it proved that it was really hard to do that and be a law student. But while I was working at Infocom, I met my now ex-husband, because he was a producer there. And so we did a lot of games together. And during law school, I mean, we were the one couple I knew that had a regular Nintendo, a Super Nintendo, and what we have, we had a Sega. We had like 4 gaming systems in the house. And I will tell you my favorite computer game. I'm digressing a little bit, but my favorite computer game. My then boyfriend, as he was, he might have been my fiance at that point, came home one night and he said, here's a game you might like. And he handed me a game called Lemmings. This is the original Sega version of Lemmings. And it was like 10 o'clock at night. And I went, okay, I'm just going to play this for a couple hours and then go to bed, because I have an early class the next day. And I started playing it, and I thought maybe an hour had gone by, and I suddenly looked at the clock. It was 3:30 in the morning. I had gotten so engrossed by this game. You had these little characters that came on. You could give them tasks. So some of them would hold their arms out, and some of them would explode, and they would do various things, and you had to save lemmings and get them to the next level. It was a little puzzle, really engaging, had the best cheesy computer music. So it was like do 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 do. Somebody's gonna make a GIF out of that. A GIF out of that. And this is how you pronounce it. Oh man,
So
yeah.
did you ever play
It's
D&D
forever.
with Barry?
Um, I'm not sure which Barry you're talking about.
Oh,
I
there's
know
multiple
you
Barrys.
know a few people named Barry, so you gotta tell me which Barry. I mostly play D and D with my fiance and whatever game group he was with. We did, in addition to D and D, we did a lot of Shadowrun because he was producing a computer game based on Shadowrun. So yeah, I actually managed to play. I played a rocker and a bodyguard were my two characters. Hmm.
Awesome.
So I just I had fun role playing that because I got to role play a different version of a rocker than I was.
um, what's your favorite style trend from the 70s? And how do you feel about vintage looks coming back? I mean, I don't think you're on TikTok at all, though.
I am not really on TikTok, but I would tell you I am absolutely obsessed with Måneskin. They are the Eurovision winners. They're an Italian band, Italian rock band that is totally 70s inspired. And I absolutely love watching them channel the 70s into a modern attitude and modern music. So that's pretty cool. And I think the thing about the 70s, the fashion that was great is just how flowy it was. So you can think of classic Stevie Nicks, and she had the flowing skirts. And we had that picture of me doing the back bend that I used in the preview. I had these crazy bell bottomed pants on, and everything was big, kind of big sleeves and things that tied and scarves. And we flowed. So I kind of like that. It was a very freeing sort of effect.
Okay, so we have a clarification. Did you ever play
Ah,
D&D
that
with
there.
Barack Obama?
I was in my entire all my first year law classes except for one because we had a small section class that he and I were not in together. But I was in all my other first year classes with Barack Obama. We did not call him Barry. He was Barack by then. And we hung out in completely separate groups. So no, I did not play D&D with him. He was I don't know what he was doing in his spare time, but I don't think he was with me playing Elvira pinball. Played a lot of Elvira pinball in law school, in Shadowrun.
Do you what music do you like to listen today?
I tend to, when I listen to music, to listen to classical music. I am particularly a fan of Mozart and Beethoven are my two favorite composers, so I listen to a lot of that. When I listen to pop music, it has been very much for trivia. So I listen to it. I don't like listening to a lot of modern music because I get earworms really badly that will get stuck in my head for like a month. And all it takes is hearing the name of a song to get an earworm stuck in my head. I don't even have to hear the music. So I tend to try not to listen to today's music for pleasure because it will get stuck in my head and drive me absolutely bonkers.
Good to know. What are your favorite movie?
Oh,
With kids.
I have a soft spot for really nerdy movies, and so I really love Real Genius. But Val Kilmer used to be funny. He used to be really, really funny, and I also like movies that are unintentionally awful. And my favorite bad movie, right up until the gratuitous sexual assault scene, is Showgirls, without a doubt, because it is just so easy to have memes about it and private jokes. And I I did get hit on one day by Robert Davi, who plays the completely sleazy strip club owner in it, and that was entertaining.
Okay, so I have to put this question up. Are you an animal lover? Do you have any pets?
Well, yes, I am a huge animal lover, especially cats. And unfortunately, the last of my two babies, I had a pair of sisters, both black, Xena and Cleo. And Cleo passed away in October. In fact, we're coming up on the 1 year anniversary of her passing, which was very, very difficult because it was during the self isolating part of the pandemic. And she was my company. And she was the reason that I started doing the art because I needed an outlet for how I was feeling about the fact that I was going to be losing her at some point fairly soon. And it just was me dumping my feelings and painting with words and um, playing around with stuff. And I tore my biceps tendon holding her so much in my left arm. It was worth every bit of pain. I absolutely I pretty much love anything with fur, and my neighbors will laugh at me because my neighbors love plants, and they have been re-landscaping my hillside and doing all the work and out there watering and taking care of the plants. And I just feel like I look at the plants and I go, "You need water again? Really? Come on, why? Can't you take care of yourselves? Just work it out amongst yourselves." Survival of the fittest. It's like something that I can't pet that doesn't love me back. I don't have the same fuzzies for. I do like plants, but they don't purr.
True, true. Do you watch TV shows on Netflix? I'm gonna say any. Like, do you have any favorite shows right now?
Um, yeah, I do watch a lot of things on Netflix. My absolute favorite show that most people haven't seen that is on Netflix is a show called Versailles. It is set in Versailles during the reign of Louis the 14th. We get to watch Louis the 14th becoming a tyrant. And it is a lot about court intrigue and affairs and the relationship between Louis and his brother. And it is just exactly the right mix of historical accuracy and and stuff, and a little bit cheesy, but not too. So I adore that show. And my other kind of my guilty pleasure show, which is the one that I watch late at night when I don't care if I'm paying that much attention and whether I remember, is The Magicians, which I just find underneath all the silly stuff has a tremendous amount of heart.
Yeah.
So I'm really fond of that show as well. The international ones, Dark is just a mind bender, but it's really well done. That's out of Germany. I've watched Luna Nera, which comes out of Italy. It's about witches during the 17th century, and it's a very feminist point of view. Is it a great show? No, it's entertaining though, worth watching. I've watched some shows out of Turkey. I get really frustrated with how sexist they are, even if they're well done, and a lot of them aren't well done. Um, I don't know if you've got any great shows, particularly dramas. Pop that up in the chat for me because I will be going back and reviewing everything.
Yep. So
So
if I missed anything, she'll go back and read all the comments. Have you seen any monkey reunion tours?
I have not. What people don't know about me is somebody was asking on just generally on Facebook, who was your first celebrity crush? And in fact, my first celebrity crush was Mickey Dolenz. Um, yes, when I was a kid, oh, Monday nights were the monkeys. I wanted to grow up and be able to wear Yardley slickers. And definitely I wanted to marry a monkey. And it kind of changed. I was not always true, but I usually came back to Mickey because Mickey was my favorite. He was the one that made me laugh. And yeah, that is a very attractive quality in a partner for me, is somebody who can make me laugh. So I feel like I don't know that a Monkeys reunion tour at this point is going to be worthwhile, but I at least get to remember them in my heyday. Something that people don't know about me is that one of my best friends in grade school had a father who was the producer of Paul Revere and the Raiders. So we got to go to the tapings of those shows. We got to hang out with the band. We got to see how they did the set and watch those. that was a huge amount of fun. And we would always drive by. There was a place called Lum's that had hot dogs brewed in beer. And I'll tell you, when you're 10 years old, the idea of a hot dog brewed in beer utterly grosses you out. And it's really I don't remember much from this, except that I kind of remember that the backstage place that the band hung out had a spiral staircase for some reason, and that it was right near Lum's.
Okay. How long were you friends with Randy Rhoads?
Randy and I were friends, I mean, probably close, just for like a couple of years. Randy Rhoads, who was originally the guitarist in Quiet Riot, and then I knew Dana Strum, who is the bass player in Slaughter. He was friends with my sister and then later with me. And he called me one day and said, Ozzy Osbourne is looking for a guitarist. Do you know anybody who might be good? And I said, I know, and it was like really off the record at the time. I said, I know Randy is not happy with Quiet Riot, and you might want to talk to him because he's an incredible guitarist. I mean, for people who don't know Randy Rhoads, he was as good a guitarist as Eddie Van Halen. Also, one of the nicest people I ever met in the music industry, bar none. And so I'm sort of responsible for Randy having joined Ozzy's band. And unfortunately, that didn't end well. But Randy remains close in my heart and somebody that I just will always have nothing but good memories of. Awesome. Even the time, no, you're going to want to hear this.
Oh.
Even the time one night, we were driving home one night, and Rodney was driving. I think we were driving my mother's Pinto. My mother had an orange and white Pinto. That car was spectacular. And I think we had gone somewhere. I'd had a little bit to drink, so I didn't want to drive on the way home. So Randy was driving, and he was kind of spacing out and was like, no, here, get the exit here. So he had to change lanes pretty fast. And as soon as we got off the freeway, we got pulled over. They arrested Randy for drunk driving. And even though I was 16 years old and it was like 3 a.m, they just left me there to walk home. Yeah, how times have changed. I had to walk home at 3 a.m. Fortunately, it was not very far from home, but yeah. Randy and a friend of his. We used to go to parties because people used to have house parties, and Randy and his friend would always steal a few bottles of alcohol and like leave it on the passenger side on the floor where it would roll around underneath my feet. And I don't know. I don't remember us having had very much to drink, but I guess it doesn't take a lot if they smell alcohol, which might have been from a bottle leaking on the passenger floor. And yeah, they arrested him. He got out later that day, and I made it home safely, obviously. But yeah,
that was before cell phones were big, right?
That's before cell phones existed. You just would have these blue call boxes, and and they were about a mile apart. So if you broke down on the freeway, you would have to walk you'd have to remember which way is the closest call box, and it would be very scary because inevitably you'd be wearing high heels.
Yeah,
and like a guy would stop and offer to help, and you would never know if that was safe or not. So you would say, "Thanks, I've already got help coming," and you would just lie. And then you'd go to the call box and they'd send you back.
So we have about 3 more minutes. I'm going to pop up 2 more questions.
Okay.
This one is 14-year-old fan here. Do you have advice for future female rock and roll musicians?
This is the advice I would give any musician. Before you sign any contract, get a lawyer. Absolutely get a lawyer. We did not have one, or at least not one that was effective, and ended up with deals where literally the other day I got a royalty check for $142. That's it. So, that's enough that's barely enough to back one game on Kickstarter. Not impressive. So yeah. And thank you, by the way, for being a fan and for being a fan for 4 years. I cannot believe you listened to our stuff when you were 10. I hope you didn't understand the lyrics back then. So I'm gonna
Last question. How can fans obtain your autograph?
Right now, you can't unless you buy my artwork, which is all would be done unofficially. You can contact me on Instagram because eventually that will be going up. I will have a page for it, but I'm not quite ready to do that yet. And at some point, I may start doing conventions and signing things, but right now, I just don't have a good place for you to send things to. So stay tuned. I do interact very frequently on Facebook and Twitter at Jackie Fox 1976, or on Instagram where I'm Foxy Khmer, FOXYCMERE. And I just want to thank all of you for joining me on this, my first ever live AMA. I hope we will do more of them. Thank you so much to Amanda for curating this and for setting it up. Please, if you want a treat, check out Amanda's streams on Twitch. They're incredible. She does some amazing crafting. She plays board games. And sometimes she just has a fantastic group of women on talking about things that women think about. And it's really kind of interesting and eye-opening and always thought-provoking. She is a very special person. Check out Leader Games. They are just absolutely one of the best game publishers out there. They have not put out a bad game, and they've put out a ton of great ones. So I will personally vouch for Root, and Fort and Oath look amazing. I can't wait to play them. And Patrick is just a great guy. And thank you so much to Michael, who has been moderating over on Facebook, for moderating today and for playtesting my narrative adventures. Hopefully I'm going to be doing another one of them. There is a part 3 to the Adventures of the Chubby Slugs, and that will hopefully be on Game Night Live soon, and I will post that on my social media pages. So again, thank you for coming. We'll do another one of these soon. Have a fabulous weekend, everyone. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.